What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be building a portable hot water system that you can bring along so that you have hot water anywhere that you have access to a garden hose. I've used it a couple times already. We did it on a tight budget, but it worked really well. I've used it to clean some nasty grimy parts for the big block swapped 3rd gen Camaro, but it would also work great if you needed to shower, wash cars, or anything else that you might need hot water for. Also, make sure to stick around to the end of the video because we have decided to open up channel memberships, and at the end I'm going to cover some of the cool unique perks that you guys can gain by becoming a Bought to Build channel member. With that being said, let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gone through the intro, let's get this box opened up so we can check out our new portable hot water heater, and then I'll show you guys the stand and setup that we made to keep this thing nice and portable but still a nice solid base. All right guys, we're gonna go ahead and get our new water heater opened up. Once we get it opened up, I will show you the stand and the whole setup that we made to house this thing. Now before we get into opening this thing up, I do want to show you guys, I did order up a couple different fittings. I did a bunch of research and I found out that we're gonna need a few different adapters to be able to use this with a standard garden hose and to do what I want to do with it. But I'll show you guys the exact adapters when we get to those points and we start hooking this thing up, and everything here will be linked in the description of today's video. So let's get this thing opened up, check it out for the first time, and see if it's going to work for what we're trying to do. All right, typical Amazon box in a box. All right, now let's get the second box opened up. As you guys can see, there are some part numbers here. Like I said, it'll be linked in the description, but this is the exact one that we got. So let's go ahead and get this thing opened up and check it out. Hoping this works out pretty good for us because for this price, you can't beat having hot water outside. So I've been wanting to do this for a really long time, but I didn't want to buy some super expensive setup. So I'm hoping this is the answer to making it happen. So let's get this thing opened up here and see what we've got. Let's go ahead and get some of the stuff out of the way. I'm guessing this is probably like a propane hose and some other fittings and stuff. A little shower head it looks like. See if we can get this out of here. Lay this down so we don't scratch it up for a minute. All right, so there's the first look at it. They must sell these things refurbished because it's got a big new sticker on the bottom. Go ahead, check this thing out, make sure there's no damage or anything, and then I'll show you guys the stand that we made for it, how we're gonna be housing this thing. I'll show you the fittings that we're gonna need, and then last of all, we'll hook it up and give it a shot. So, like I said, I went with this one because I wanted hot water outside, and I was gonna go with an electric one for a long time, but everything I seen online said that those electric ones don't get the water nearly hot enough for what we're trying to do for cleaning parts and things like that. So I decided to go with a propane one. Now going with the propane one, obviously you have an exhaust outlet right here, which is going to be a lot of heat coming from the propane burner. So we can't just set this thing down anywhere. It needs to be stood up kind of like this. And then I also chose this one because it had a couple different controls right here on the front, as well as this little display, which I'm not sure how accurate that's going to be as far as telling us the temperature of the water, but I figured it's worth a shot. We'll test it with a temp gun or a thermometer and see if it's even remotely close. Now, another thing that we're gonna be doing a little bit differently here is most of these heaters come with a little battery box just like this one here, and it takes some D-cell batteries. Well, if you guys are anything like me, I never have any D-cell batteries around, but what I do have around are power tools. So I ordered some stuff up to hopefully be able to wire this up to a Milwaukee M18 battery so that we don't have to use any D-cells, because like I said, I have tons of Milwaukee batteries around that are always charged up. So the plan is to be able to run it off of that, and then obviously the propane. So let's go ahead and check out the instructions. I'll show you guys the stand that we made made for this thing, and we'll try this thing out. Now that we've taken a look at the new heater, let's take a look at the stand that I built to hold this thing. So as you guys can see, we have right here a wooden stand that we built just out of some super cheap 2x4s from Home Depot. I think I'm into this thing for like 35 bucks. So as you guys can see, I just made a super simple frame with 2 cross runners here. Now we'll probably add a support down here because I'd like to make something for the propane bottle to sit on, and then we might even go as far as to add some big wheels, at least in the back, if not all 4, so that we can roll this thing around much easier. But for now, it's just a stationary stand, and it's super light. We can pick this thing up and move it around as long as you disconnect the propane bottle. But as you guys can see from the front, it's just a super simple wood stand. And then as we come around to the back, this is where some of the wiring stuff is. So like I said, I did some research and hopped online, and I found out that these machines run off of 2 D-cell batteries, which produce right around 3 volts. So what we have here is just a simple plastic adapter for a Milwaukee M18 battery that has 2 leads coming out of it, a ground and a power. And then we have that coming down to a switch right here on the ground side. And then the power side comes down to an inline fuse, which both of these wires, when the switch is flipped, run into this buck converter. Now what this is going to do is this gives us the ability to adjust the voltage. So we have 18 volts going in, and then via this little screw on the back right here, you can put a meter on your 2 output wires, which are these ones right here, and you can adjust that screw until you get the voltage step down as far as you want. In our case, I have it set at 3.17 volts or so, and then simply we run these 2 wires into the wires that the battery box of the new heater will be, which I'll show you guys here in just a minute. But before we get it wired up, we need to get this thing mounted. So let's grab the heater, we'll get it held up here, put some screws in it so it's mounted, so we can check this thing out. So the way I decided to mount ours is we're going to be using these 2 screw holes up here on the outside, and then down here, this was flat. I just took and kind of bent that up so that we can set that down on top of our second brace, just because I feel like it's going to be a little bit more sturdy that way. So now that we've got that bent up how we want it, let's carry this thing over to our stand and get it mocked up. Got that held in place, we'll try to center it roughly, eyeball it, and then we'll go ahead and throw some screws in this thing. Super easy to mount. Like I said before, there's those 2 spots on the bottom that we're going to be using, and then there's 2 more up on the top. So let's go ahead, grab a screwdriver, and get this thing tightened down. So I'm just going to use a Phillips head screw with a washer. And as you guys can see, I already went ahead and pre-drilled these holes so that they don't split on us. Not that I think these little screws would, but we went ahead and pre-drilled them all. Now that we've got our new heater mounted on the stand we made, let's go ahead and start working on getting our fittings on, so we're one step closer to trying this thing out. As far as fittings go, the heater itself has an inlet and an outlet, and I believe they're both 1/2 inch. Now your typical garden hose is 3/4, so we had to get a couple different adapters here that I'll link both in the description below. Now if you're going to use the included shower head, you only need the inlet one, which is this one right here. But if you're planning to do a garden hose in and garden hose out potentially, like we're planning to do, then you're going to need both of these. Once again, I'll link them in the description below with our Amazon affiliate link, and that way you guys can pick up whichever one you might need. So let's go ahead, throw some thread sealant on these, get them tightened up onto the heater, and we're one step closer to trying this thing out. So we're going to have to put some thread sealant on this hose inlet one. The outlet one, the fitting that we have, has an O-ring there, so we can just tighten it up. But this one, we're definitely gonna have to put a little bit of thread sealant on. So I like to use just this little Teflon paste. It works really good. You can use tape, but this stuff seems to work good for me. And we are gonna have to put this on this fitting here. And then I'm not sure if we're gonna have to do this propane one. Let's take a look. Nope, there's an O-ring on that one as well. So the only one we gotta do Teflon on is this water inlet. Put a little bit on my finger. We want to make sure we snug that down, but you want to make sure you don't break it. You got to remember this is some Chinesium. So we've got that snug down. We should be good. Worst case, we can always try a different means of sealing. But for now, I think we're going to be just fine with that paste. Now the next thing I'm going to do is put on our hose outlet one. This one has an O-ring, luckily. So this one, basically just over hand tight, should be perfectly fine. I'm gonna say that's good. Then if we have an issue, we can always snug it down a little more. I'd rather go under than over. On this propane one, we want to snug it, but again, don't break it. All right, that should be good. Now we can go ahead, grab our screwdriver. I'm gonna show you guys how we're gonna take this battery box out to wire in our power supply. So if you guys don't wanna do the Milwaukee battery conversion, it's actually a super simple setup. You just have your little battery box here, you turn the flap, this will open up and you can put your 2 D-cell batteries in there. Like I said, it's a very simple setup. I don't know how long the D-cell batteries will last, and I also just never have them on hand. So I decided to go this route and use the Milwaukee battery. So to do that, what we're gonna do is open up this box. Then there's gonna be 2 screws in here, and we're gonna go ahead and loosen those. I'm gonna carefully pull this box down like so. And then just like most things, we're gonna have a red wire and a black wire right here. We can carefully unplug both of these. Then I'm gonna take my 2 wires that we made. In our case, yellow is power, black is ground, yellow to red, black to black. Once we test this and everything works, we can go through and neaten up this wiring a little bit. I think I'm gonna tuck it behind here. I'll show you guys what we end up doing there. But I just wanted to throw it together to go ahead and test this thing first. And we should be good to start hooking up our water and propane. Now we can open up this box here, which is gonna have our propane line in it. Get our propane line hooked up. Should be good right about there. We can hook this up to our propane tank, and then we can grab our water inlet and what we're gonna use for an outlet. Now let's grab our 2 garden hoses and get those hooked up. All right guys, we're gonna go ahead and hook a garden hose up real quick. We're gonna get one dedicated for this setup once we have it tested and it's working good. I recommend coming up with a hose setup that's gonna stay with this thing, so you can hook this up and leave it, and all you'll have to disconnect is the propane and the inlet line, because I feel like if you had to do that all the time, eventually that thing would get loose and potentially break. So just make sure you're careful when you're hooking this stuff up. So real quick, before we put our Milwaukee battery to this thing, there's a couple things I just want to mention quick. First thing we're going to do is check for leaks with our propane. I'm going to open the bottle up, spray a couple of the fittings with some Dawn dish soap, make sure it doesn't bubble, make sure we don't have any propane leak. Now I do want to reiterate, if you guys are using a buck converter like we are to run a Milwaukee battery, make sure that you're testing it before you hook it up to the system, because these electronics are very easy to fry. So you're gonna hook up your Milwaukee battery and use your digital voltmeter on the 2 output leads from your buck converter, and you're gonna dial that in using that little screw on the back that I showed you until you get it to the voltage that you want. Now 2D batteries put out roughly 3 volts, 3.3 volts. So we set ours at 3.12 or 17 volts, and I think that's gonna be perfectly fine. So like I said, just make sure you do that so that you don't hook it up and put 18 plus volts to this thing and fry something. So with that being said, let's go ahead and test for propane leaks. Then we can hook up our battery, turn the water on, and give this thing a try. Make sure we don't have any leaks there. That's pretty self-explanatory though. It's mainly up here I care about. I don't see any bubbles at our fitting, so that's a good sign. Now we can hook up our Milwaukee battery, flip this thing on, power it up, and see what it does. So I'm gonna just slowly turn our water on here. I have a valve right under the heater. I'm just gonna slowly turn that on, make sure we're getting water out of our hose before we put power to this thing. Check for leaks, which I see a leak already. That's lovely. Let me show you guys what I just found. I don't know if you guys can see in there. Let me turn this water on low real quick. Can you see that? The line's not hooked up. It's right next to it. So that's lovely. Let's see if we can take this front cover off, get in there, hook that up, and tighten it down. I'm gonna show you guys this just in case yours comes this way too. I'm using a little plastic pry tool, getting behind the knob and carefully prying. We gotta pop those off. Then it looks like there's 4 screws around the perimeter here. We're gonna undo those, and hopefully this whole lid comes right off. Let's go ahead, grab a screwdriver, pop this off, and see if we can fix this thing. I got the 2 bottom screws out. Take out the top 2 real quick. And we got to be careful here because we do have wiring right there. And now we can set this whole panel off to the side. All right, guys, I went ahead, pulled the cover off this thing, and I have to say, you can definitely tell this thing was made in China. If you look at the soldering and all that stuff, little sketch. But anyways, our root of our issue is right down in here. As you guys can see, that line is not even attempted to be hooked up to where it goes. So I'm gonna very carefully try to get this to go over and into there and then tighten up that nut. Then we can put some more water to it and see if it holds. Tighten that down and see if it seals. That's definitely a little questionable though that it came like that. I'm guessing China doesn't have the strictest quality control guidelines. So let's go ahead, tighten that down and go from there. I don't want to go much tighter than that, guys. All right, now that we've got that tightened up, I'm gonna go ahead and very slowly turn the water on and see if anything sprays us or if we have any other leaks. I do still see seepage there. Try to give it a little bit more. That's definitely our biggest leak right there. Still a very slight seepage out of it. I'm gonna take a pair of pliers real quick and we're gonna bend it right here so that the water at least drains out so that we don't fill this whole thing with water, and then we'll put the cover back on. All right, we've got that line hooked back up. It's not 100% sealed, but it's much more sealed than it was. So let's go ahead and get this thing plugged back in. Let's go ahead and throw the knobs back on and try it. I'm gonna leave the knobs a little loose so that if I have to pull it back apart for something. All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and try this thing and see if it works. We do have a slight drip still, but I think I got it mostly fixed. I'm gonna put some water in this 5-gallon bucket and we're gonna test it with my temp gun quick, see what temperature it's coming out at now. And then once we get this thing fired up, if everything works, we'll do this again with the warm water and see how warm it gets. So let's go ahead and turn some water on. Take my little temp gun. It says it's 48, but that feels pretty chilly. Go ahead, dump this bucket. Now let's see if this thing even turns on. So first thing we're gonna do is take our Milwaukee battery here. I've got my switch off. I'm gonna simply clip that in place. Got plenty of battery there. I think there's an on-off switch down here. We're gonna kick our power switch on first. Kick this one on. I hear an igniter. Something's happening. I smell propane. It says 57 degrees Fahrenheit, 59, 60. Still feels cold. Turn the water down. I don't know if you guys see this, but it says a low here with a bigger line and then high here with less. I'm gonna turn it down to high. Yes, I said that. Turn it down to high. And then it's also got a winter summer. I'm gonna guess winter is more heat. And then min max. So we'll turn the max up. Turn the water up a little bit more. Water still feels pretty cold, but we'll give it a second. Oh, it's starting to get warmer. Oh yeah, that's getting warmer. Yeah, it's up to 67 over here. That says 78. Let's play around with this thing a little bit more and see what we get out of it. You can see the temperature actually does change on here, which is surprising. Let's turn the water pressure down even more. That's with the water pressure down all the way. We're getting a pretty solid pressure out of it with this little jet nozzle. That's warm. I mean, you could shower in that 100%. It says 124. I don't know about that, but maybe. It is pretty hot. Fill that bucket up a little bit and see what it does. It is filling the bucket pretty slow at this rate, but it is filling it. The hose is getting warm. It says we're at 124 on the heater, but I don't know if it's that warm. So let's see. It is steaming. Oh yeah, 111, 110. So it is getting there. 113, 114. And I mean, I could probably wash parts like that. Yeah, that's warm. I kind of want to see how hot it'll get. I'm gonna let it run for a minute, make sure it keeps doing its thing, and then go from there. All right, guys, so we've been running this thing for quite a while now, and it seems like the hottest I can get out of it is 125 on the display, and I've gotten all the way up to about 117 out here at the bucket, so it's actually pretty close. Like right now we're at 117, 118 even, 117.3 is the hottest I've seen. So it's actually doing pretty good. I'm actually pretty impressed with the quality of hot water we're getting. Now granted, we do have the pressure turned pretty far down, but I think for cleaning a part or like cleaning a block or cylinder head, this is going to be more than enough pressure for what we're trying to do. You could honestly make this work to wash a car or something. So I think it's going to be just fine. Now we have the 16-liter one. They do make bigger ones, I think all the way up to 20 plus L liters, I would assume. Now we just went with this one because it was cheap and it was on Amazon, and for what we're using it for, I think it's going to be perfectly fine. But I'm actually really impressed so far. Granted, it is from China, so they're going to be hit or miss, and you might have an issue like we had fixing that line. But now that we've got it working, it actually seems to be doing a pretty good job. So I want to do a couple other few little things here to test it and do little things to see if it works and how this thing works. But I'm going to play around with it a little bit. I'll check back in with you guys and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so we've been running this thing for a little while now, and it seems to be doing really good. We're getting nice hot water out of it. But there is something I'm curious about. When you're washing a car or washing parts, a lot of times you'll scrub something, you'll turn the hose on and off while you're scrubbing that part. And I'm really curious to see how the heater acts when we do something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead, shut the hose off here, leave everything on as far as the heater goes, and see how it acts and see if it does anything when we turn it back on. So let's go ahead, shut it off and see what it does. So it did shut off. It took it only a second or so, and it did seem to flame out. I hear a couple snap, crackle, pops from it, just from heat from the expansion and stuff of the parts inside the heater element. But we're gonna let it sit off for just a second here. So we've let it sit off for a second. Now I'm gonna go ahead, turn the hose back on, and see what the heater does. Rather quickly, it did ignite, and it was up to about 135 when we first reignited it, and now it's back down to about 118. So as you guys seen, we fired this thing up, ran it for quite a while actually, and I tried messing around with it a few different ways, and it seems to be working pretty well. Now my only complaint is when you turn the water pressure up, you don't exactly get the hottest water, but as long as you're okay with having the pressure turned down a little bit, you get pretty hot water. And for what we're trying to do with this thing, I think it's actually gonna work out perfectly fine. Now, if you're trying to do a super cheap hot water setup that's either portable, that you can put on a trailer for like power washing or cleaning stuff on the go, or if you're trying to do something more commercially scaled, you're definitely going to need something bigger than this. But if you're trying to do something at home that you can move around or at the shop that you can use to clean parts or even occasionally wash a car, I think this one works out just fine. Now they do offer bigger models. This is the 16L. I think they have an 18 and a 20L. Now I have no experience with those, so I don't know if they're actually bigger or more flow or anything like that, or if they're just labeled that way as a marketing thing. So don't hold me to that. We have the small 16L, but it does seem to work pretty good. And once again, for what we're trying to do, I think it's going to work just fine. Now, like I said earlier in the video, I'll have everything that we used in today's video linked in the description below so that you guys can go and check it out. Now, I definitely do recommend doing the Milwaukee conversion because that seemed to work really good for us. I just checked it. We can check it again here real quick. I think we still have full bars, and we ran this thing for quite some time. So like I said, still have full bars on the Milwaukee, and this thing shows no signs of wearing that battery down. So I think we could run this thing for hours without any type of issue, and we don't have to go and try to find any D-cell batteries. So pretty happy with our little setup here. We are going to make a couple little changes as far as the hose goes. I want to put either like a reel off to the side that we can just keep a hose with this thing, and then maybe make something for the propane tank and try to make this thing wheel around or something along those lines. But for now, I think it's going to work out just fine. So hopefully this could help you guys out in some way, shape, or form to get hot water in your shop or your garage. It's definitely going to help us out cleaning out some parts. As always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms, Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram, and we will catch you on the next one. So like I had mentioned at the beginning of the video, I decided to open up channel memberships so that if you guys wanted to, you can help support the build and be a part of them. Now the way this is going to work is you can hop over to the channel, become a member, and depending on the tier you choose, we'll decide the size of your name. And then at the end of every video, we'll pan over these before we close it out. So thank you to any of you that want to become members. It helps support the channel and grow our builds.